This movement, this interest in nonconformity, however, has a kind of a downside. And I'd say that it's something that approaches a kind of fatalism. Because if everybody should be natural, if everybody should develop according to their own inclinations, and if those inclinations that we have are endowed in us biologically, then it must be true that people are different. Some better and some worse. And thus, to let ourselves be as we're inclined to be is in fact to say that some of us are going to show our superiority to others. There's a kind, I think, of, one could say sometimes it's sort of a desperation to people who think they should try to save the world and realize they have no chance. But there's also a realization that they are caught in the world. And I'll tell you a story about a man named Xian. Xian had quit government to be pure and retreated to his county estate. And the emperor at the time wants to bring him into government, and he refuses. And somebody says to one of the people at court, says to the emperor, you know, this guy Xian, back in his estate in the countryside, he has a singing girl with him. He's a hypocrite. He's indulging in his desires. He hasn't transcended anything. And the ruler listens and says, and I think a very wise statement, he says, well, he says, you know, it's good to know that he shares the desires of other men, because perhaps eventually he also will begin to share our worries. In the case of Xian, he did. Eventually he went to court. He became a leading official, a great general, and defended the South against invasion from the North in a famous battle. But this sense of an aristocracy of the pure, of people who are superior to others, comes out in another way, in what's called pure conversation. The ability to capture the essence of somebody with an anecdote, with a story about them, just as I've talked about Xian. There's a great interest in collecting anecdotes about people, but also in judging people and in ranking them. This sense that we have ranked people, that we have displayed ourselves so that we can be ranked, that we've defined who's superior and who's less qualified, fits, of course, very much with an aristocratic culture, a culture that assumes that people of our kind, of our family, will keep producing people like us, that we will always be superior, and that offers much less opportunity for talent to rise. There are some legacies here that are important. The notion that superior men do not compete is certainly an old Confucian notion. The idea of spontaneity and naturalness, we could say, is certainly Taoist. We've seen that in the Zhuangzi, for example, during the Warring States period. But now it's brought to a new level. This notion of the validity, the righteousness of spontaneity, of naturalness, is given new voice in this period. It is a paradox, perhaps, that a movement that began as the search for a new foundation, for imperial unity, ends up finding a foundation for individuality and the discovery of self.